Let's talk about the water in your school district.
Absolutely.
How concerned are you today about the water in the schools?
I'm no more concerned today than I have been since the day I arrived. I think that we pride ourselves on safety, and that's just not the physical safety, but also the mental health of our children and those items that they consume. And so the water, from my understanding, has never been an issue. By all objective measures, it's safe here in River Rouge. Several years ago, we made the decision to put water coolers throughout our buildings because there was an employee who raised a concern about the water. We began testing. We are completely confident that the water is safe, yet we still have allowed the water coolers to remain. And I don't mean one cooler, there are multiple coolers in every building on floors because we want to alleviate any public concern.
Could you see how do you see how someone might look at that and say, well, look, they've got water coolers. Obviously something's wrong with the drinking water in the fountains.
No, I wouldn't say that. If you look at the conditions that exist in your suburban schools, there are a lot of extra amenities that no one would raise questions about. So to say that you have a district that's compassionate enough to say that we're going to put water coolers throughout, I don't think that that raises concern. We should really be celebrated for it.
Okay. When did you put the water coolers in?
We started that 3 years ago.
Okay. And what happens when the water coolers run out of water?
We refill them. You know, we're on a schedule, so we recognize that with X number of students, X number of staff, reasonable drinking, conditions, here's how much water should be there. If the water runs out, we'll make a phone call, we'll have it right back the next day.
Have parents or students complained to you about the water?
I've not received any complaints from anyone except a former employee.
Okay.
And I mean that, no one.
The video that was sent to us by a former school teacher, right here. I know you've seen it. I just want to show it to you again for the record. You can see water that's clearly brown coming out of that sink, and this is being shown on Facebook now.
So, and I appreciate you showing the video, because if you also noted that he stuck the empty water container right up to the faucet and cut it on. I'm willing to bet had there been a 3-4 second runoff, you wouldn't have seen it. Now, if you're talking about some of our most prestigious communities, Rosedale Park, Indian Village, they're older pipes, older systems. And if they're unused, let's say for a weekend, and you cut the water on, there may be a runoff, but that isn't the persistent condition. That very well was after a weekend. You can't tell me that if he had left and come back an hour later and turned it on again, that it would have been the same issue.
Students have said that they still have some concerns in some of the schools, particularly the middle school, Sabbath Middle School.
Yes.
Are you aware of any discolored water that still comes out of the sinks in Sabbath or in any other school?
No, I'm not. And again, if you look at our resume, we have a well-documented history of going above and beyond to make sure that our children receive extra care. There's no way that water would be an issue if it had been brought to our attention. But I do want to state that we've had the water tested yearly, and by all governmental standards, the water is fine.
What was the reason for testing the water a couple years back? You ordered up an independent review.
Yes.
Why was that done?
And I'll repeat, because there was a former employee who would say, look, there's an issue with the water. Prior to that, I don't know if it had ever been raised because I didn't go back that far to check. But once he brought it up, we wanted to alleviate the concern, so we had the water tested.
Do you feel it was just a personal grudge between you and this former teacher rather than a legitimate issue?
Well, I believe that there was some legitimacy to the issue because if you see there's some discoloration, but I'm absolutely certain that there's a personal grudge.
Okay. You were kind enough to share a report with us.
Yes.
A water study, essentially, that was done, and we looked at it closely. There are, in that study, if you read it line by line, in the study there is mention of traces, very minor, but yet traces of lead. Are you concerned about any of the lead traces in those reports?
Well, me not being an environmental scientist, I take the reports, from these agencies as our guidelines. And so even though if it said that there were traces, it still said that it's safe to drink. And so if these same studies were done maybe in more affluent communities, would those readings be the same? It's quite possible that they would be. So no, I'm not concerned. And I don't know if I mentioned, I have 3 daughters who attend school all throughout the district. They're subjected to the same, conditions as everyone else. As a parent, I have no concerns. And I want what's best for my children as any other parent. So as the superintendent, those are the lines of thinking that guide me. And so if it's not an issue for me as a parent, no parent should have any issue about the water safety here in River Rouge.
How many students do you have in this district, and what are some of the financial challenges that you encounter?
Great question. We have 2,200 students in the district. And I don't know if so when we talk challenges, when I arrived here 6 years ago, there was a $3.4 million deficit. We were able to eliminate the deficit, and we now have a $4.7 million fund equity. So we've been able to, we eliminated the deficit in 2 years. So there haven't been any financial challenges. We've been really good stewards. So I can't mention any challenges. We have the same challenges that we would love to purchase additional things.
Certainly you have a community that deals with poverty.
Yes, we do. But there's also, a middle class here in the community. But this village that we have has sold out to make certain that we are able to educate children. The vast majority of our students come from outside of River Rouge. We're very transparent with families. There's this ethical care that we're driven by. And I know that while I would love to expound on some other things, water is a basic human right. And so how do you sell these families on all the great things that are happening in River Rouge and then not make certain that they have suitable drinking water? It just doesn't make sense, and it's inconsistent with who we've been.
And you said how many students in how many schools total?
So there are 4 schools. We have 2,200 students. We're projecting 2,400 for next year. We believe that the high school will have a waiting list. In the time that I've been here, we opened up a K-8 STEM academy. It's growing. Our elementary will be at capacity. So a place that has those types of issues that aren't keenly aware of the issues that families have doesn't have those positives that I just spoke of.
Do you have any idea off the top of your head, what did it cost for those water studies that you had done?
No, I'm not for certain, to be candid with you. I can just tell you that we'll do them every year that I'm here. Well, let me say that I believe it's a practice that the district will continue, because water safety, especially with all due respect to the Flint water crisis, we supported that with bottle drives, for water and everything. We went up to Flint. So when you see what happens when children don't have suitable water, there are long-term health conditions that come from it.
Now, they say lead, does not have any color, so I know that that's obviously tested for that.
Yes.
Do you have any concerns about any of the water today that comes out of the sinks or the drinking fountains?
No, I would, again, I would just talk about a runoff. So if you're talking about water, or if they haven't been used over a period of time, if you go cut them on, there could be some discoloration. I'm not certain that it is, but there could be. But if our evaluations of the water have come back and they said that this is safe, if we provided the water fountains, coolers, for children, then I have zero concerns about the water. Matter of fact, I wish children drank more water, because they spend so much time drinking soda and juice. That's unhealthy,
So the water, to your knowledge, the water that comes out of those drinking fountains today is very much drinkable?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I would just like to say that I think that we have, again, done great work with families, and children. From the number of children who we've sent off to the University of Michigan or Howard or Michigan State, children come here and they receive a great education. They receive it because we meet every child where they are. So whether it's a student who has an IEP or a student who could be in any academic institution anywhere, we support all of those families. And we're going to continue to do so. We're going to be unapologetic in our demands. I can't control the narrative of people who may leave because they don't fit the spirit to serve. But I can tell you that you won't find another district that works as hard for all children as River Rouge does.